Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Boxiest, and today we're going to continue the What If series. What if events had gone differently? And in this What If, we're going to change the history of Cobra Kai. What if Johnny joined Miyagi-Do during the events of the Karate Kid? So I had actually thought I had made this video a long time ago, but looking back at the older videos, I was surprised that I never made it. So here we go. So in this timeline, Johnny would never discover Cobra Kai from a young age, so he would continue living his life as a normal kid. He wouldn't be popular, and he would keep to himself, and Johnny wouldn't have the same level of confidence that he did in the original timeline, so he would never ask out Ali, so Ali would end up dating someone else. Those events would continue. Since Johnny never joined Cobra Kai in this timeline, many of the original Cobras would never join. So in this timeline, Cobra Kai would have an entirely new set of students, and the events of the Karate Kid would continue. Johnny would continue living his life, and he would start to get bullied by some of the Cobra Kais. In this timeline, Mr. Miyagi would still work as a maintenance man, and Sid would hire Mr. Miyagi to do some repairs around his house. This is when Mr. Miyagi and Johnny would meet, and Mr. Miyagi would notice Johnny's black eye, but Johnny would tell him the same thing that Daniel told him in the original timeline, that he got into a bike accident. Johnny would continue to be bullied by the Cobra Kais. One day they would follow him home, and they would want to beat him up, so the Cobra Kais would start beating up Johnny. Mr. Miyagi would see this, and he would decide to help, so Mr. Miyagi would fight off the Cobra Kais, and Johnny would thank Mr. Miyagi for saving him, and much like in the original timeline, Johnny and Mr. Miyagi would go to the Cobra Kai dojo, and they would want to put an end to things, but Kreese would tell Mr. Miyagi that he can't come in and drop a challenge and leave, so Mr. Miyagi would still propose a tournament. Mr. Miyagi would still train Johnny, Mr. Miyagi would train Johnny, and he would teach him the wax on and wax off. But Johnny wouldn't like doing chores, but Mr. Miyagi would show him that he was learning muscle memory, so Johnny and Mr. Miyagi would continue their training. Daniel would still move to the valley in this timeline, and he would still be invited to the beach party, but in this timeline, Daniel would see Ali with another guy, so Daniel wouldn't approach Ali in this timeline, and Daniel would continue hanging out with Freddy and his friends, and they would go their separate ways. Mr. Miyagi would still meet Daniel in this timeline, but they wouldn't interact much. Johnny and Mr. Miyagi would continue their training, and they would start to form a bond, and Johnny would start to gain more confidence. Mr. Miyagi and Johnny would continue their training. Johnny would find balance, and he would start to master defense much faster than Daniel did in the original timeline. Mr. Miyagi would take Johnny to his work at Daniel's apartment, and they would work on their bonsais together, and Daniel and Johnny would see each other around the apartment, but they wouldn't interact. Mr. Miyagi would want to help Johnny with his home life, so Mr. Miyagi would confront Sid, and Sid would eventually agree to go easy on Johnny, so the relationship between Sid and Johnny would improve. Johnny would continue his training at Miyagi-Do, and the night of the tournament, Johnny would compete, and he would start winning his matches, and Johnny would still make it to the finals. He would use a crane kick, and he would be the All Valley champion. Those events would continue. Mr. Miyagi and Johnny would go to Okinawa, and Johnny would upgrade their tickets to first class, and in Okinawa, Sato would still want to fight Mr. Miyagi. Chozen would want to mess with Johnny, but Johnny would defend himself. Johnny would meet Kumiko, and they would start dating. The events of Karate Kid 2 would stay the same. Chozen and Johnny would still have the rivalry. The hurricane would still happen, and Johnny would save Yuna. Chozen would still be disgraced, and he would still run away. The Obon dance would still happen, and much like in the original timeline, Chozen would confront Johnny in front of the whole village, and he would challenge him to fight. So Chozen and Johnny would fight, but Johnny would be stronger and faster than Daniel at this point in time, and he would know more defense, and Johnny would manage to take down Chozen using a jump technique, so Johnny would defeat Chozen. And by the time Johnny and Mr. Miyagi go back to the US, Kreese would still want to get his revenge on Mr. Miyagi and Johnny, so Kreese would still go to Terry Silver, and Terry would still hire Mike Barnes, but Johnny wouldn't be afraid of Mike Barnes in this timeline, and he would be forced to fight back. Johnny would stand a better chance against Mike, but Mike would still defeat him. Terry Silver would try manipulating Johnny, and he would want to train Johnny, but Johnny wouldn't want to learn offense. He would say that karate was for defense only. Mike would continue trying to intimidate Johnny, but Johnny would fight back. Johnny would be a lot more reasonable than Daniel in this timeline, and he would send the police after Mike Barnes, but Terry would bail him out. But Mike wouldn't want to continue working with Silver, so Mike Barnes would leave, and Terry's plan would fall apart. Johnny would want to continue finding balance, So he would continue his training with Mr. Miyagi. So Mr. Miyagi and Johnny would continue training over the years. And that is where I'm gonna end this what if. Thank you guys for watching. What do you guys think would have happened if Johnny joined Miyagi-Do during the events of the Karate Kid? Let me know in the comments below. YouTube lets me know that the majority of you are not subscribed, so if you guys could subscribe, that would be much appreciated. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. And I'll see you guys next time.